Hello, my name is Mr. Boyer, and welcome to Excel A. This is our introduction to spreadsheets and to Microsoft Excel. I'm going to teach you a little bit about some of the things that go on in Excel. I'm going to teach you about the purpose of a spreadsheet. I'm going to explain cells, and we're going to define functions. Take a look at some editing options here and look at different ways to manipulate data. So the spreadsheet, if you look carefully across the top, it's divided into columns, which are denoted by letters, and rows, which are denoted by numbers. So when we reference this top cell in the upper left corner, we call that A1. If we come over to this cell over here, we call that J6. If I come over a little bit, I can actually move over and keep moving my cursor, and notice that the letters double up, so now I can move over to AD6. So we have columns and rows that denote where information is stored in a spreadsheet. So the purpose of a spreadsheet is to allow us to do math quickly, and we can analyze data in 2 dimensions. Sounds really complicated, but really it's just a fancy calculator. So the purpose of the spreadsheet that we're doing today is we're going to create a budget. So let's call this a budget for baby. Okay, we're going to look at the costs associated with a baby. Of course, these are imaginary numbers, and we're just going to use this for illustrative purposes. If you're planning on having a baby, just to understand, it's probably going to be a lot more than the numbers that we're presenting here. Okay, so we're going to look at this over 4 months' time. Let's look at the months January through April. So I'm going to select a cell to start in. It's not super critical. I'm going to use cell D4. I'm going to start, and I'm going to type the word Jan for January, Feb for February, and then come over here and we'll select March for March. And again, I'm just hitting the tab key to move over each time in April. Now, those are the columns. In our rows, we're going to list the types of expenses. Number 1, we know all babies need diapers. They need food. They need savings for college. They need toys and doctor expenses. We'll call it just doctor visits. Okay. So let's put some numbers in here. So baby, maybe, and this might be a low number, but we'll say $60 in January. We'll type $70 in February because baby's getting a little bigger. Maybe $75 in March and $80 in April. Food, we'll do let's say $30, $50. $55 and $45. Okay, our savings for college every month, we're going to save $150. And I'm going to show you a little shortcut here. Now, if I copy this, I can highlight that cell, hit Control C, and then simply come in here, hit Control V, Control V, Control V, and then copy those in there. That's one way to copy information from cell to cell. Next, toys. Let's set a budget of $20 each month. And set a $100, 50, we'll say 35 and 100. Okay, so now we have some data in here. Again, the numbers aren't super critical. We just want something that we can work with. Okay, so now you have a table. Now, if you look, we can do some things with this data. One, we could add these totals up ourselves and add up the expenses for January, the expenses for February, the expenses for March, and for April. I can also look at over that time period. I can add up across to figure out how much I'm spending in diapers and food and savings and toys and doctors. And we can definitely do those things here. So let me show you a couple of things that happen here. So let me show you a couple ways to work with data. One, if I want to copy a cell, and this sometimes actually results in a mistake, but other times it's useful. Occasionally I want to move the contents of a cell. So if I use this white, if you notice when I have the white cross as I have a highlighted cell, I can drag that over and use that to add more cells to my selection. But if I highlight a cell and I have the black cross, that results in moving the data, and sometimes that results in a mistake here. So I can just go ahead and undo that with no problem. But it might also be useful too. Another thing that I can do is I can copy cells. So suppose in this savings for baby here, if I delete that, another way that I could copy those cells is to simply highlight the one cell and then find this little black dot. That's called a fill handle. And I'm going to grab that handle and simply expand that that cell, and however far out I drag that with the little black cross, it fills in the numbers for me. So that's another way to manipulate data. So we've looked at a couple different ways to manipulate data. We've shown how to move, how to copy. Another thing that I'd like to show is formatting. So if I select, again using the white cross in the selection window here, if you look at cell D4, I've selected January and I have a white cross. I'm going to click my mouse and then drag that to expand the selection to all 4 cells. So now that I have all 4 of them highlighted, I can come up to the font group up in the home ribbon, and I can select bold, and I can also come here and put a bottom border on that line. And so now there's a bottom border there. I can do the same thing right here too. I can highlight those, make those bold, and I can come down to the border selector and select the right border, and there I have some basic borders. Now, okay, so now we've seen how to select rows, how to copy and move data. One thing I'd also like to point out is how to change the size of columns. So if you take a look at column C here, I have diapers, food, and I have savings for something, but I'm not sure what it is. So I can click on it and I can see up in the formula bar, okay, this formula bar up here is where I can look at what the data is in a cell. I see that it says savings for college. So one thing I can do is I can hover over the space, that line between 2 cells, right up in the columns selector up here, and I can actually hover over that, and when I get the black line with the 2 outward facing arrows, I can drag this, much like in columns on tables in Microsoft Word. But another thing that I can do is I can use AutoFit. By hovering over that same selection and double clicking, it automatically selects the right size for that. Okay, so now we've adjusted our columns and rows. Let's work with some of the numbers here. So suppose I want to add up all of the numbers in the month of January. I want to see how much my budget is for the month of January. Well, I can use what's called a function. So a function, the definition of a function is that it's a predefined formula. So in Microsoft Excel, as in many Office applications, there are several ways to do things. I can come up to the editing group in my Home tab, look at AutoSum, and I can select the down arrow. And down here I can select either sum, I can select average, count numbers, max, minimum, or I can select more functions. Microsoft Excel has a lot of predefined functions, and they make your life a lot easier when you're doing math. So again, if you love math, Microsoft Excel is great. If you really aren't crazy about math, you'll really love Microsoft Excel because it does a lot of the math for you. You simply have to know what you need it to do. Okay, so we're going to select the column where we want the sum to appear, and we're going to select the sum function, and it automatically predicts what range of numbers we want to add up. So we're going to cover the range. We're going to add up the sum of the range of numbers from D5, Notice it says up here column D, row 5 to D9, and we can find that right down here in the formula. So we verified that number. We click enter, and it automatically totals that up. So that's one way that we can do sums. Another way I can do a sum is if I want to say I want to add up a series of numbers and I know the function that I want to use. I can simply go to that last cell where I want to add the numbers and use the function insert button, the insert function button on the formula bar. When I click that, it gives me a whole lot of options, and you can see the most recently used functions. I can also use financial, date and time, math and trig, statistical, lookup and reference functions. I can use database functions, text, logical, information engineering, cube, compatibility, web functions, all kinds of functions here. We're going to go to these most recently used. I'm going to click sum and click OK. It's going to ask me for the range. If I click on the select range button, it allows me to find the range of numbers. In this case, I'm going to highlight the range from D5 to G5, and we'll bring this number down. We've got that selected, click OK, and it highlights that range. One more way to do that is I can simply go into the formula, and if I know the name of the function I want to use, I simply type equals sum, and I start with a parenthesis, and then I can type the range that I want in here. In this case, D6 to G6. So D6 colon G6, and then close the parentheses, and it gives me that range. Okay, so now we've done this, and I could duplicate one of those three methods for each cell, but again, there's an easier way to do it. I can simply go to the top here. I can right click and select copy, and then I can highlight the range of cells where I want to paste that function and simply paste the function in there. Notice that in each cell it changes the row number by 1. So Excel is predictive in that way. Alright, another way to copy the formula from a cell is I can highlight a cell and I use the fill handle. So we find the little dot in the lower right corner of the cell, and I hover over it until I get a black plus sign, and then I can drag that across so that it fills the range that I want to copy that formula to, and it will automatically fill all those in for me. Okay, so now I can create a total column and a total row. Notice that Microsoft Excel is predictive. It predicts that I want to format them like the cells near it. And I can also, since I want to add these borders, I can select a cell, use the format painter, and paint that cell. Okay, there you have it. So this is our first lesson in Excel. Your job is to create a budget similar to this one, but I want you to create it about something else. Can't be for a baby, it can't use my numbers. You have to create your own budget. So find another budget. It has to have a minimum of at least 6 categories and 4 months or more of information. For that, this is Mr. Boyer, and I will see you next time.